This is Dr. David E. Clarke welcoming you back to the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast and Laurel Slade-Waggoner's podcast, which is called
Help, I Have a Narcissist in My Life.
Perfect. Now, a little self-promotion here at the top because we need to promote ourselves because we're trying to help people. And if we make money at the same time, that's not a crime. Anyway.
The goal is to get the word out, though, and help people.
Right. If the other follows, that's fine.
Right.
So we're asking you to subscribe to our podcast. That's what we're doing, and we're just laying it out there. And if you know people that could also be helped by this, then you could pass the word along. That'd be great. So you subscribe to the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast. You subscribe to Laurel's podcast. We both have YouTube channels as well.
Yes.
And you can subscribe to those as well. That's a lot of subscribing, but it will end up, I think, really being of help to you. So today we are focused on Laurel Slade-Waggoner's book. Show the book, Laurel. I call her Lori, but her name is Laurel.
Either one.
Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy. Yeah. Awesome book. Mm-hmm. And we're taking a portion of this book today, and the topic is dialoguing effectively with a narcissist.
Yes.
Because these ladies, they're going to have to deal with this guy before they leave, after they leave, manage it somehow, and you've got some great ideas on how to do that.
Right, where you write a lot of books on how to leave or how to use the redemptive tool of separation. I wrote a book because sometimes you can't add a lot of that separation. So let's say you have to co-parent with an ex-spouse. He's in your life to stay.
Right.
You're going to have to problem solve with them, so you need to learn how to do that. They do not absorb information like other people do. Right. You can't dialogue with them the same.
Right. Does not work. In fact, makes it worse.
Yeah.
We'd like God to do the Nabal thing and just take the dirt ball out.
And I have a lot of women who ask for that and pray for that because they're so desperate.
And I think that's fair.
But I have in the past too.
Have you? Well, yeah, there you go. Because it's awful. It's a hell on earth. Mm-hmm. Now, God may do that. We'd like him to move away. And some of these guys will eventually, they'll find some new woman if, in fact, there's a divorce. If God guides you and they have a new family and there'll be less to deal with. But in the meantime.
Right.
Because initially, even if there's a divorce process or you're brave enough to separate, they'll make your life a living hell.
Right.
And they want to look good. So there's a lot of things you're going to have to use here in that phase.
Right, because control and abuse is about power. They are trying to overpower another person, so that manifests itself in all of the decisions that you have to make on a daily basis.
And you leave them, you've taken their power. Mm-hmm. Oh, and they can't have it. Character assassination. All of a sudden, they're the greatest dad the world has ever known.
Right.
And they'll turn the whole world against you. And of course, including the kids.
That's part of how they interact. They pit, they triangulate against. Yeah. They use a lot of intimidation, trying to invoke terror in other people.
Right.
They fog them. They try to get them to make decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt.
Yeah. They have a whole arsenal, don't they?
Gaslighting, blame shifting, derailing, you name it.
Yeah. I had a lady, I told you about this case. There was an older couple. This is a couple years ago where the guy was an old narcissist. She put up with it for 40 years. She was exhausted. She was broken down. But he was upping the ante and he was hiding her key. He was hiding her keys.
Oh my goodness.
And she'd go, "Where are my keys?" He'd say, "I don't know, honey. Yeah. Maybe you have dementia." It was awful. I said to her, enough is enough.
Right.
When you find your keys, and you will, use them in your car, leave him, and never come back.
Right.
Oh.
They get better at being narcissistic over time. They learn what works.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
It's their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get
so
away.
I can see why at that age.
Oh, yeah, the poor thing was, and that's why I want ladies to get out, and I know you do too. 30, 40 years, there wasn't much left.
Right.
It was very sad.
The prognosis for them changing is very slim.
I'm not sure if she ever got out, but I referred that case to someone else. Anyway, so I'm gonna ask you some questions since I'm interviewing you.
Sure.
Would you like me to do that?
We just kind of dove right into attacking.
And again, this is from Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy. And before I forget, this is a few months off, but you're working on a second book, are you not?
I am working on a second book, so it's Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy. My book was getting too long. I use a lot of words. So if I'm using a lot of words here, just cut me off.
She has a lot of content. Dr. Clarke cuts to the chase.
Yeah, so the book is big, and it was getting to be too big. So my son Austin actually said, "Why don't you split it and make a whole nother book?" So Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy. It's going to be teaching you how to work with your children, because you can't work with a narcissist. You work with your children, teach them dialoguing tools and filters and different things like that.
That'll protect them. Right. Mm-hmm. That's going to be, I think, an awesome book and a great addition to the book you have here. Mm-hmm. Okay, question number 1. You've already started to talk here, but first off, when you say a narcissist, who are you referring to, and how do they typically interact with others? Let's talk about that a bit.
Well, these are individuals who, this is a pattern. This is somebody who has a personality disorder. So you're looking for somebody who has a sense of entitlement, treats people with a lack of empathy. Oftentimes they're drawn to the grandiose. They think others are envious of them. They might be envious of others. They live with this constant jealousy.
Yeah, they're super special, aren't they?
They
like
think they're special
right.
and they don't have to have negative consequences. So that's kind of what a narcissist is. The way that they interact is they have temper tantrums. They use a lot of narcissistic rage, a lot of manipulation, blame shifting, derailing, gaslighting, making decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt, trying to get the other person to make decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt.
All about power, control, right. and getting what they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I call them a 3T because at times they're like a toddler, at other times they're like a teenager, and at other times they're like a terrorist. Yeah. I'm trying to get you to make decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt.
And they're relentless.
Right.
I mean, since they don't care about you at all, that's the lack of empathy.
Right.
No compassion.
Right. And they treat you with chronic indifference. Yeah, they're on a pursuit.
You could be crying, you could be falling on the floor, you could be really upset. That's your problem.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm sure you've experienced that in session. When you're doing marital therapy at first, like on a first session, you see one person, the wife, let's just say, is crying and begging, and he's just stone-faced.
Oh, yeah, nothing there.
Stonewalling's another. Yeah.
Or they'll actually, if they say anything, they'll mock. They'll mock the wife. Mm-hmm. Oh, then you know what you have on your hands.
Or they'll get very frustrated at her tears. Yeah. And so I'll point out, frustration is not an appropriate emotional response to crying.
Well, right.
Right.
Especially when it's legitimate.
Right. And that comment, it infuriates them, but it helps the victim a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, they see no impact, right? The narcissist doesn't realize, nor does he care, what he's doing to you.
Right.
There is no understanding that I've caused this whole mess.
Right.
Oh, no, your fault.
And they don't 100%. Want to change.
No, they're not going to change. Mm-mm. We'll give them a chance, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's keep going. I like this number 2. Laurel came up with these questions. So that's why they're so good. Anyway.
I was trying to encapsulate some of the stuff from the book. So
this is good. This is the I like that you say you need to speak narcissism.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
So we're jumping right to...
No, this is part of 2. That's a little note I had, but we're still on 2.
Oh, okay.
And here's the question. If the audience, that's you people, if you use conventional communication skills, which would be normal, active listening, empathy, reflection, being gentle, collaborative, with someone who is clinically narcissistic, as we've described, what typically happens? So you're doing the usual normal stuff with your, let's say it's a narcissistic husband. What happens?
Right. Where most people would respond to that, but someone who has narcissistic personality disorder, if they're a controller and an abuser, they will attempt to power over you. Yeah. That's what they will do. Yeah. In whatever way they can, they will try to overpower you and control the circumstance.
All these normal things, forget it.
So that's where we did another podcast about helpers who make mistakes in dealing with these kinds of couples, and that's something that they do. They'll work toward teaching these communication skills, and they encourage these communication skills, but it doesn't work with someone who's narcissistic.
Right, just pointless. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's a real shift they have to make. The non-abusive narcissistic person, because you're thinking, well, I read a communication book and I'm doing everything right. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make any difference.
Right.
In fact, it makes it worse.
Right, exactly. And then they feel more disregarded. Right.
Right, just that endless cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you'll end up, and of course they wear you down. You'll do it my way because I'm never going to stop wearing you down.
Right, right.
They'll never quit. Mm-hmm. It's never done your way.
Right.
Or if they throw you a crumb, then they want to parade in their honor. And some kind of a big response to what I did.
And that's something I think I failed to mention when I was talking about what narcissism is. They have an excessive need for affirmation.
Oh, right.
So they're constantly asking for validation.
It never stops.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The normal man, wants praise and attention, but that it's at a normal level. They are way off the charts.
Right.
Has to be every time.
Well, and I don't think a normal man wants praise. He just wants acknowledgement, right?
Well, it's really respect. It's about respect. I tell Sandy, look, when she praises me for a speaking thing or for a book I did or for something happened, if it's sincere, of course, then it's like I feel respected.
Yeah.
I've been acknowledged, right? It's like approval from the most important person. But the narcissist, it never ends.
It's unquenchable.
Right. And never satisfied.
Right. And so then if they don't get it from you, they will try to get it elsewhere. So
right. And of course it never comes back the other way. They don't end up praising you. Why would they bother?
Right.
You're not as special as I am, and you exist to serve me.
Right. And you are trying to get them to engage in some kind of responsible behavior, and they don't want to deal with that. They want the affirmation, the praise.
Keep that coming.
Called a narcissistic feeding system.
That's it. And man, it's the bucket with a hole in it. Never ends.
Right. Which that's a criteria for narcissistic personality disorder in the DSM-5, our diagnostic manual.
And the crazy thing is, there's not much to praise with these dirt balls. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, right. And when we're dialoguing, talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Okay. Now let's go to number 3. Okay. You have to interact with a narcissist to solve a problem. Okay. Because life.
Right.
Kids, money, whatever it might be, and they cannot avoid their narcissist completely for one reason or another, even if you're separated. The co-parenting, working with it could be a narcissistic coworker or family member, right?
Yes.
Could be.
Yes.
So this applies too. So your question here is, what are a few approaches to communicating effectively or solving problems with a narcissist if this is the case? So let's talk through that a little bit.
I would say like 2 overarching approaches to keep in mind are, you talk about this, like you use separation. So you reduce your dialogue to functional dialogue only.
Bare minimum.
Right.
Right.
So Matthew 7:6, I call it the pig scripture, says, don't give to dogs what is sacred. Don't cast your pearls before swine, lest they only trample them under their feet or turn and tear you to pieces. So that means they're going to do nothing good with it, or they're going to blame shift and turn and tear you to pieces. So only communicate with them about issues that you have to communicate with them about. That's number 1. Number 2, I would say, is pick your most effective mode of communication. Not his, but yours. So a lot of times that might be written. So you want to reduce your dialoguing to texting, emails only. He'll want you to talk with him.
Right.
But he knows he can fluster you by that kind of engagement. So I say wherever you are most effective, that's the kind of communication that you have with him.
I like that. I like the text and email too, because you have more control.
Absolutely.
He might send you 40 in a row ranting, but you don't have to respond to that.
Right.
Right.
So you are more in control that way, and you won't take his bait, and you won't get so flustered. So
some great examples in your book I was reading yesterday about a typical dialogue, and there was one issue was regarding, I think, picking up the kids, and the narcissist was getting into all kinds of other stuff. Yeah. And she just stuck to that issue.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I think it's one of the later questions about derailing.
Right.
Like, don't let him derail you.
He's off on all kinds of stuff. Well, what was the original issue? Right. Just stick to it. I like that. Bare minimum, because he'll drag you all kinds of places.
Yeah, that's the purpose, because he's trying to avoid the responsibility of whatever the original request was.
Yeah. And these guys enjoy torturing you. They love to get the reaction. If you're upset, well then, job's taken care of. Okay.
Yeah, some of them do. Right. Others are just trying to avoid responsibility. They just want to do what they want to do when they want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the toddler thing, or even teenager.
Exactly.
It's not me.
Exactly.
Why should I have to do that for you?
Yeah, exactly.
The blonde asks me to do stuff for her all the time, and I do it because I love her.
Right.
And it makes her happy.
It's collaboration.
I crab sometimes, but you know what? I get the job done. Anyway, let's look at number 4. This is a good one. Narcissists are unnerving. Of course, you've touched on that. They keep you off stride. Thus, the title of the book, Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy. What are some strategies to help the audience stay calm? Because you don't want to give them the emotion. Stay calm and prevent them, the narcissist, from giving their power away. Prevent the spouse from giving their power away to the narcissist. Give me a few of those.
And this is where you'll probably have to stop me, because I get so excited talking about this stuff. These are all calm down strategies, because they will drive you crazy. Right. So I'm trained in cognitive behavior therapy and dialectical behavior therapy. So a lot of this comes from that. The first one I would say is anchor therapy. I've made that up, so you can't Google it anywhere. But anchor therapy.
Sounds good. Oh.
You stay anchored in your calm. What is an anchor? keeps the boat in place no matter what's going on around it. So think anchor therapy. So you want to calm your body down, make sure you don't go into panic, calm your mind with calm down thoughts. It's going to be okay. God of peace rule in my heart. Then renew your mind with truth. So it's a 3-step process. That's anchor therapy. So,
I like that. No.
Yeah, because you can't use your executive functioning, come up with some more realistic thoughts when you're in panic mode. So calm your body, calm your mind, then renew your mind with truth. So that's anchor therapy.
I like that. Yeah, maintaining that calm is important because he's trying to throw you off and get you upset, riled up. Yeah. Then he can accuse you of being a nag or being too emotional or being too sensitive.
Right.
Or whatever it is.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So another one would be ride the wave of your emotions. So our emotions are like a big giant tidal wave that overtake us. So take a few deep breaths. Try to figure out exactly what you're feeling. This is key in that don't give the emotion a judgment. So if you're saying to yourself, I can't handle this, it's going to increase the panic.
Yeah,
right. And then figure out what you can do in the circumstance. You just got to get through that big wave.
Okay, good. Sounds good.
Another quick skill is this is more with decision making wise mind decisions. So you don't make decisions out of your emotional mind, not out of fear, obligation, or guilt. You make them out of prudence. There's tons of scriptures that talk about making wise decisions and being wise, being prudent.
And Laurel has many examples of these techniques in the book, so you'll be able to see how to.
Right. That's where I say I would love to go into each of these in detail, but
it's got too much material. There's too much material, but that's why you got to buy the book.
Right.
Buy the book. It's all there, and it's tremendous.
So that's keep yourself calm. What I love doing, and what most people come into session, they want to dialogue. They want to practice dialoguing. They want specifics on how do you interact with a narcissist.
Right. You do the role play. Because they need to hone those practice skills.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And be ready for all the stuff he's going to throw at you, and it's a bunch of stupid stuff, and then you maintain, you'll get better at it.
Right. So you mentioned derailing. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
They take you off on rabbit trails, or they'll call you a name, so you're defending what they're saying. So all over the place. But guess what happens? The original issue never gets addressed.
Right.
So you have to remain calm, and then you have to, I say you use a 2-step process. So you set a goal for the interaction, and then you keep laser focused on that goal.
Just focus and kind of forcing him to do it. And if he can't get the usual reaction, then the chances are better you can actually get it accomplished.
Right. So don't give him your emotions. Remember the Matthew 7:6 scripture. Right. Don't give him your emotions. He's not going to do anything good with it.
Right.
So keep focused on the issue at hand that you have to solve. Because like I said, you have to solve problems with them. Yeah. You might have to co-parent with them or work with them.
You're kind of forced into it. Unless
or
they just
even
go
parent. Away. I have a ton of clients who have narcissistic adult children that are irresponsible or addicted.
Yeah, the same principles apply. You had a great example in your book of a wife who with a narcissistic abusive husband, and she was bringing something up in the best way she could about some issue he had that he'd done to hurt her, and of course his response was, here's the derailing, well, how about you? There was a time last week when you that's not the topic here.
Yeah, and if she defends herself, then
that's what he wants.
You're off on that rabbit trail.
She's immediately defensive. We were talking about that thing you did, right? If we can solve that, then I'll be happy to talk about this other item, which is probably bogus anyway. But
which is what you do. I learned a lot of this also through parenting books. You wrote a parenting book.
I did.
A good one. A really good one. So when kids are throwing all kinds of information and we're asking them to do something, a compliance interaction, we're trying to get them to clean their room, you stay focused on that. You ignore all the other stuff and you say, we'll talk about that in a minute, but right now we're talking about why your room is clean. That's
that immaturity. Of course, the narcissist has not matured. He's still in that boat.
That's a 3T, right?
Yeah, right. Boy, very good. Okay, a few more things. Let's get to number 5 a bit. We mentioned the derailing. These are dialoguing tips that they can use when they are dealing with their narcissists. Let's do one more. Let's see. Okay, don't take the bait is a good one. Pick your battles.
Yeah, I would say don't take your bait. That's the big one, because then they will bait you into acting crazy, and then you do act crazy,
right?
And then they call you crazy,
and look how
then
crazy
you feel
you
guilty,
are. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because you acted a little crazy. So then you start identifying with their projections onto you. So it's a vicious, nasty cycle.
Yeah.
So
how many times have you heard a lady come in, and I get this all the time? Am I really crazy? He's convinced her.
Right.
I think I'm nuts. I keep blowing up. I'm crying uncontrollably. Well, they're taking the bait.
And then she'll tell me, but I do act crazy. So then I know she's absorbed that projection.
Right. She believes it.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not looking at the crazy one here. I'll say, it's him.
Right.
You're lucid. Right. You're a Christian. Once you get the story, you're right.
Yeah.
So that they have to retool their whole mind.
Absolutely, because they're agreeing with it. There's like Stockholm Syndrome and other things. Right. So they're over-identifying with the abuser.
That's where I think our two books fit so well. Yeah. I mean, I want them to get out. I'll tell them how to get out and why biblically they can get out. But to get strong enough to get out, to understand how things operate and to even make it happen, that's where your book, Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy, it fits. I think it's hand in glove.
Right, because if God doesn't
2 books.
Wipe them off the face of the earth, you still have to interact.
Right, you're forced, and you got to get ready to get out. I tell ladies, it may take you a year, it may take you 2 years. I don't know, but that's the goal. Let's get you strong enough to do it.
Right, which is a good point that you bring up in your book. You can't always leave right away.
Yeah,
you have to get your finances in order, and you go through a very structured plan of getting that.
Right.
So these skills will help you when you're in that place of holding.
If he hits you, puts his hands on you. Right. Well, it is the horrible waiting, but at least you have a goal. You know you're getting out.
Right.
If he hits you, okay, you're going to have to get out now.
Right.
If it's dangerous.
Right. Matthew 18:15-18. You get the police. You tell him to stop. He doesn't stop, get the police.
Right. Okay, so now before, Laura, you said that you lose a lot of words, you have a lot of material, all right? So we could go on for hours here.
Yeah.
But if people want more information on this, number one, on the narcissist, especially in the church context, then get Laurel's book, Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to get my book either. Enough is enough.
Right.
Hey.
Right.
But then we're asking them to subscribe to our podcast, aren't we?
Yes, because that way, then we can get the word out. Narcissistic control and abuse, there's so much of it in the church. So if you're in that kind of relationship, subscribe. And they get something for subscribing, right? They get notifications that
then they're in. They can find out. They know when the podcasts are coming out.
Exactly.
And they're special people because they're subscribers.
Right, so that they can get empowered. And then if they know anybody else who's in an abusive relationship, then they could forward the information on, and they can subscribe and get that information too.
Right. Because sadly, this is not a message that you're going to hear in many Christian counselors' offices. You're not. Well, we're trying to help the pastors, counselors, and helpers, but also the people that are affected.
Right. Absolutely.
Very good. Now, our next podcast will be about me and one of my books, My Spouse Wants Out. We're going to have a dialogue on that coming up in our next podcast.
Yes.
Cool.
So, thank you for having me.
Well, my pleasure.
Okay.